At the start of the movie, we see this really old man looking over the graves of his ancestors and those who have come after him. He says it's really old, even older than the oldest person I've ever met. He goes on to say this story isn't about him, but his father, Reverend Ayodele Timileyin Johnson, who died at the age of 68 in 2003. Timi wasn't an average human. He spoke 16 languages, 4 which were extinct. He could hold his breath underwater for almost an hour and even excelled spectacularly in Her Majesty's Navy. After graduating at the top of his class at Cambridge in 1953, he went on to be the youngest member of clergy in the Great Church of England. He is the only son of his father, who was a successful shipping trader. He never knew his mother, who died of an ailment when he was just a child, and now his father. Timi returned to the country a wealthy man with his wife Bridget and beautiful daughter Alison. They were his world and they meant everything to him. He got familiar with the town and fixed the old church which he went on to pastor in. Even though he was fitting in as a small town clergyman, he still received recognition from Princess Alexandra, who asked him to pray for her on the evening of Nigeria's independence. This was an important period for the country, and while they embraced their newfound freedom, some people called for the leftover colonials to vacate the country. But these whites had a gruesome gang known as the Baby Fire Gang to exterminate them. Timi and Alison were hiding at the scene when it happened, and we are just lucky to be alive. Something had to be done about Baby Fire and his gang, but nobody is ready to speak up due to fear of his retaliation. Timi volunteered to be a witness at the magistrate, and his wife couldn't even talk him out of it because he felt like it was the right thing to do. But to his surprise, after identifying Baby Fire as the killer, the judge who works for the evil leftover colonials still freed him, claiming it's due to insufficient evidence. This means peace just left the building, and by Baby Fire's hand gestures, Timi knew he had to send his family far away but wouldn't go with them. As they left, what they didn't know was Baby Fire was waiting for them. Before the driver could think fast, a bullet was pressed to his head. The family was driven back to the mansion, and by this time, even Timi had been captured, gagged and tied by both hands. With his wife and daughter still in the car, Baby Fire poured petrol on it and set it ablaze. In front of his eyes, Timi watched his family die. They left him alive to savour this terrible experience. He lay there for days, come rain or shine. People tried to help by removing the car and bringing food and flowers, but all he wants to do is immerse himself in the memories of his once happy family until one day he stood up. He had lost his faith in God and was ready to do what God wouldn't: kill Baby Fire. He got to the man's home while he slept. When he woke up, he knew why Timi was there, and even still, he tried to taunt him. Little did he know, Timi had embraced the dark side. He shot him severally, after which he set the house ablaze, using the same lighter Baby Fire used on his family. The next couple of days, he tried using different methods to kill himself, but failed. And to show how resilient he was, 35 years into it, he was still trying. But rather him, others he considered family died, and this time it was his butler. It was at this point the narrator, Elijah, came to know Timi. He just rounded up his NYSC and couldn't secure a job. But really, what he wants to do is start his own church. And while he admired the local church, the new owner who wants to demolish it sees him. Meanwhile, after losing his butler, Timi hasn't had luck retaining any good houseboy, mostly because of his hateful nature and inability to live with. But that isn't enough reason to leave a grieving man who wants to kill you. Elijah heard of the job opening and saw it as a good fit. He let himself into the mansion, admiring its dusty environs that could trigger his asthma. Now, one thing about Elijah's asthma attack is, it could get triggered by confrontation, excitement, or just a pretty woman. And when he came face to face with Timi, it was confrontation. After establishing why he was there and introducing himself, Timi was still less than kind and rejected him right away. Elijah persisted and even brought God into it, and we all know how Timi felt about God. After establishing the ground rules, Timi hired him. Elijah quickly made the room provided for him cozy. He placed a picture of him and other orphan children he grew up with on the stand, and it appears this is the first time he's owning his own space. Little did he know, he just secured a room in hell. He resumes his duty very early so he could beat the time Timi always had his breakfast of egg and coffee, but no matter how many times he tried to get the eggs right, Timi was still dissatisfied, and after 16 tries, he got it right. He carried on with his job, and while at it, he noticed Timi had made a ritual of crying in his daughter's room every night, and he too, not knowing the extent of Timi's hurt, always stayed outside the room to share the pain. Elijah happens to be a curious person, and Mr. Kuka, Timi's lawyer, warns him about bringing up things like family or God in the house. So, Elijah took his business elsewhere. He found the old church and quickly started using the 1 hour Timi took his nap to fix it. And soon, he started advertising for his Bible study, giving out flyers. One weekend, he goes to the local clinic to replace his inhaler, and there he meets Anna, a volunteer nurse. She takes his breath away. Being socially awkward wasn't to his benefit, but he found a way to reach Anna. By making all the 37 patients he preaches to invite her for his Bible study. She makes it to one of his Bible study and his lungs gave up. He managed to get things on track, but the thing is, Anna isn't churchy. While that is a deal breaker, Elijah wasn't ready to give up. He walks her home, and during their conversation, he revealed he was a houseboy for Timi, but she knew that already because she had done her homework. From the view of her home, it's obvious she's from a worldly background, but he didn't stop seeing her. They started spending almost every day together. It's safe to say they were dating, and soon she was frequent in his study and even riding bike with him. Don't think he neglected Timi yet. He still did his normal house activities, but Timi wasn't stupid. One day, he made it to the Bible study and expressed his displeasure. Even said Elijah was misleading his flock. And then, they got into a war of Bible verses that Timi won after dropping one Elijah didn't know. And if Elijah wants to keep up with his charade, he had to search for the Bible verse. After hours of search and a sleepless night, he found the verse and served it as breakfast to Timi, which was the first time he stood up to him. Things went to normal, and soon he was the one reading the newspaper for Timi as he takes his breakfast. This was a notable time for him as he gets to sit and have actual conversation with the man. Anna had always wanted to meet Timi, but Elijah had made excuses so she wouldn't. But one day, when he was out getting eggs, Anna came by. One thing about her is she has fire in her, and her persistent attitude makes it difficult for anyone to ignore her. But whatever she's selling, Timi wasn't buying. When he couldn't shake her, he brought out the big gun, and in the process of scaring her, she got injured. He tended to her wounds until Elijah got back and got startled by the sight. And from that day, Anna became frequent in the house and Timi didn't mind her presence. Elijah, in his thoughtful way, repaired an old video projector so that Timi could watch the videos he made with his family. He stirred up so many emotions, prompting him to request to see other videos he made, but the projector couldn't play them and he will have to go to Lagos to get a compatible one. But the problem is, Elijah can't drive and Timi was a bad teacher. He tried to teach the boy how to drive using every means from slapping to shouting and ultimately giving up. But Elijah came around to it and it was a joyful moment, which extended to them sharing beer together and later relationship advice. Timi knew Elijah and Anna hadn't been physical yet and advised him to do it with her. Not minding what God thinks, Elijah picked up on the fact that he used God not once but twice. He was excited about this because Timi might just be coming around, not just towards God, but towards sharing his pains with others. For a brief period, Timi was the happiest he had ever been, and Elijah was a big factor to this. So, when Elijah needed a necktie to go see Anna's parents, he obliged and gave him the one that says he belonged there. But the tie couldn't help him win her dad over, and as it turns out, he was the man he saw at the church. He leaves after the man asked him to, but stayed enough to hear his derogatory speech. But somehow, he knew he belonged with Anna and left a souvenir to show that. His visit to Anna's home was the reminder her father, Chief Amakri, needed to chase Elijah off his property. Even though Elijah had a permit to use the place and had informed the chief accordingly, Chief argued he paid the sum of 49 million to the state as land use charge on the property, and all Elijah had to do was reimburse him the amount and take ownership of it. The question is, where are the lovers going to get such money from? A lot of bad ideas came, but Elijah is a believer, so they solicited for help from those who didn't close the door on them. Now you might think, why didn't he just ask Timmy? Well, they asked him through Mr. Coker, but he refused. What Mr. Coker added to it barely even made it to 6 million. Anna was greatly pissed and gave Timmy a piece of her mind. Elijah wasn't too happy about that, so they got into a heated quarrel that earned him a slap. Well, he had it coming. Why would you attribute someone who loves you for free with her dad's love for money? Like, he realized it's wrong. However, staying under the rain or sun outside Anna's home wasn't going to cut it for him. When he resumed his original duty, Timmy gives him a vital information. Apparently, the church is an old relic of Her Majesty's government and as such couldn't be owned by chief. So he tells him Coker would look into it. Coker better asked fast because they were about to demolish the building. A last-minute miracle was what Elijah needed, and a last-minute miracle he got. A representative of the British government put a stop to it, and this is just Timmy's way of telling Chief Amakri not to mess with his boy. Now everything is back to normal. The bears could finally swim and the fishes could now fly. Elijah informs Timmy that God spoke to him to do the church thing full-time. This enraged Timmy, and for several long minutes he just let Elijah have it. His problem really is Elijah giving the glory to God instead of him for stopping the demolition, and the fear of losing Elijah because he knew how long it took him to find him. He wants Elijah out by the next morning.
You think you know God? You think he loves you? Well, I've got news for you, boy. He will disappoint you. He will take everything you love and he will destroy it.
Meanwhile, all this time, Anna had been locked in by her parents. The only way she thought best to get them off her back was to get pregnant for Elijah, but his lungs couldn't take the excitement. She tried to resuscitate him with an empty inhaler, but it refused to work because, it's empty. He got rushed to the hospital and the doctor revealed he had been wrongly diagnosed with asthma. The real culprit is chronic lung failure, and it was too late to do anything except replacing the 2 lungs, which is even harder to find because of the wait list in the country and even outside the country. Timmy flew in several specialists, but all were of no help. The only hope is getting one from a freshly deceased person, and you have to believe, Timmy really tried to convince many grieving families to donate parts of their freshly dead. Elijah was going to die, but Timmy had promised he wouldn't go before him or give up on him. He tracked down Elijah's old orphanage and legally adopted him as his son and signed all his wealth to Elijah. He had realized that all that years God refused him from dying was for this moment, for him to donate his lungs to Elijah. He begged God to allow him die so he could reunite with his family. The door immediately closed by itself, followed by the pages of the Bible, then cheers. It seems his prayers were answered because he got to see his daughter and his wife again, soaked in the memories of true happiness and love. He got rushed to the ER, and after a successful lung transplant, Elijah woke up, but his father wasn't there. Just a letter he had addressed to him. He detailed his wish for him and Anna, for him to embrace his new life and all the good he could do with it. And for Chief Amakri, he knew the man would come around when he knows how much Elijah is worth. Just like his father who did exceptional things, now he bears a part of him. He too was capable of doing greater things or even more.